at the world map. Here we want to see how many people have already been infected by HIV/AIDS. Who can read for me? Who can read for me? Yes? 40 million in the whole world. Is that a small number?
No. 1.79 million.
Let's move to the Western Europe.
540,000.
Africa.
2.31.
Which one is the leading continent there? Yes? Africa.
For over 20 years, Africa has fought a never-ending battle with AIDS, the plague of the 20th century. Immense poverty, deprivation, unemployment, the lack of a properly constituted medical care service, prostitution amongst the underaged and children, these and more are the factors that have determined the spread of this disease.
60% of the population living below the poverty line. Girls have to go out and prostitute themselves in order to buy bread for their brothers and sisters. There are 3 families near us here. Both parents are dead because of AIDS. Girls can become pregnant. And then the abortion rate, of course, as we know, is terrible. There's 1.5 million surgical abortions here every year, and that's not counting the back street ones.
I was working as a medical doctor, obstetrician, gynecologist when AIDS came. The first reality was when we began to get many, many patients and many people sick, and we couldn't cope in the hospital with the numbers. I experienced so much pain and so many people sick and dying of AIDS. It really dawned on me that this disease is preventable. I had been involved in giving awareness programs and more statistics and information about how it spread, but nothing seemed to be changing.
Condoms were to be the ideal solution to this problem, with mainly rich industrial consortia interested in their distribution and in the huge profits to be made from their sale.
We've also asked people who are very, very strong about condoms if they were going to have sex. Beautiful woman, beautiful man there, they've agreed to have sex with you, and right before you get into bed they say, oh, just by the way, I do have HIV, but I don't worry, I have a condom. Would you have sex with them? And invariably, the people say no. I wouldn't.
Et il serait évidemment plus facile de promouvoir ce que l'on appelle.
It would of course be easy to propagate what we call the condom, though we know that its method of use makes it a total failure. It arrives in containers already damaged, huge numbers having been stored under the sun, used by several people several times and then possibly rinsed. It serves children as a football, to finally end up at roadside rubbish dumps. How is one to respect the human person if one's hopes for the future of humankind are to be determined by this piece of rubber?
Quand on lie l'avenir de l'humanité à ce morceau de caoutchouc.
When this question of condoms came about, we had pressure. They said we are not promoting the right thing. People are going to die. People cannot look after themselves. People cannot abstain. The youth cannot wait until marriage. This is a different generation. We are not on the ground, but we said we are on the ground. You know, the truth always stands out as light. We are not giving 1 day's solution or 2 months solution, but we are giving a solution to not only AIDS, but also to other sicknesses.
In fact, the solution was the Education for Life and Behaviour Change programme, one based on premarital abstinence and marital fidelity, a programme that can not only save hundreds of thousands of Ugandans from death, but the whole of Africa.
Education for Life began in Uganda as behaviour change with our sister Miriam. She herself diagnosed this disease way back in 1982. From then on, another doctor, they came together and they put the behaviour change programme together. They were going around the schools warning the students about this disease. One head teacher said to them, "We want you to do something else. You're telling us about this disease, but you're not telling us how to prevent it." So they had to sit down and put the Education for Life behaviour change programme together.
Sister Miriam Duggan, qui
Miriam Dagon, having seen the reality of nearly 2 generations die because of AIDS, and a whole multitude of orphaned little children, whose grandmothers barely managed to look after, realised that something absolutely had to be done. Behaviours changed, even more closely linked to respect and chastity. Respect for your fellow human being, a different way of looking at your fellow human being, a look that sees a human being and not an object to be used.
Qui était celui d'une personne et non pas d'une chose dont on pouvait se servir.
I worked with Sister Miriam Dagan visiting the sick. At first there were no structures. We were working with the containers, and as she was a doctor, she invited some medical personnel to come and help the victims. They formed groups of young people, young men and women, who helped the sick, washing their clothes, comforting them, speaking to them.
When you work with youth, there's a lot of enthusiasm around youth, and if you give them ideals and proper motivation and get them on board, they will do most of the work for you. And we used a lot of music and drama and song to promote the messages. One of the years was to be a light in the world, or another time it was time to act. How could they as young people be a light in today's world? And then you would run a competition, so all the schools would turn up for the competition. So they were giving messages to each other all day long, as well as acting out the messages. And so hopefully through that you were deepening that message within themselves to be the people that they really wanted to be.
Statistics on Africa paint a bleak picture of over 34 million dead in all age groups since HIV/AIDS was diagnosed in 1982. This includes children and young people under 18 years of age. It costs $200 a year to treat an adult, but even so, only a few can afford it. Centres like TASO, the AIDS support organisation based in Uganda, bring aid to AIDS victims.
We have people who have come here and they have been tested for HIV antibodies and are found HIV positive. And if they accept to come, we also counsel them how to use the medicine, because they also get the medical services from here. And we also counsel them to have a plan for their futures, because most times when people have been pronounced HIV positive, they tend to fear. And sometimes, as a result, they die because of the stress that they have and the loss of hope. But we encourage them to have the hope for the future.
TASO also helps children whose parents suffer from AIDS, providing daily care and food.
The idea for that play center for the children was to help the children stay away from the parents, because it's really traumatizing to see the parent lying up, struggle, lying down, is sick, and the children are seeing the suffering the parents is going through. So it was thought that it would be better for them to play away from the parents. They go to that center, they eat, they take their food, and at least they are not left close to the parents. But sometimes some of those children are also HIV infected.
Children get infection when their parents are positive, and more so when their mothers are positive. So a child can get HIV while still in the womb, and most of them get it during the time of delivery, because at that time there is a lot of blood mixing. So most children, actually about 60%, get HIV at the time of delivery. And then there is a big number, especially in developing countries, get it through breastfeeding, about 15%. So most of our children actually in Uganda have got HIV from their parents, and they've grown with this condition.
It is difficult to estimate how many children in Uganda are infected by the HIV virus. What is, however, certain is that they have become the greatest victims of this epidemic. The death of their nearest and dearest, parents, grandparents, often signalling an abrupt end to an all too short childhood.
The children, the orphans, that was our time bomb. Me alone, I have 40 children. I earn almost $2,000 per month. But these 40 children are still a burden, a stress to me, who earns money. What about the poor woman and old man in the village who cannot even earn $1? How do they look after all these orphans? So that is our next challenge. But if each family in Uganda only took one child, that problem would not be there. But because sometimes the conditions are hard enough, it is not possible. So you find children crowding 40, 30 in one home, like the one I'm undertaking. It can be stressful, but we believe that we will get there.
In Africa, the majority carriers of the HIV virus are women. Young girls very often infected during rape because of the widely held view in Africa that sex with a virgin is the best medicine against AIDS.
Some have tried to abstain, while some still say they are faced with a lot of challenges. Especially the girls said men keep demanding from them sex, and many times when they've declared their status that they're HIV positive, some do not believe, because these girls are looking nice, they've been on treatment for years, and you cannot believe that they are positive. So that is a challenge they are faced with. One of the key messages for those who are positive is really that they should try not to infect another person. At least that's the constant message we keep repeating to them, that try not to infect another. That's the best you can do for your nation. Then for the ones who are negative and who are really the majority, we also encourage them to really try as much as possible not to get involved in having sex, because there is a risk that is carried.
I'm HIV positive, so I'm on treatment which from 2001. My children are negative. At the center there is a group of ladies who are HIV positive. When we are together, it's not that we are there to work, but to share experiences, what we are passing through, and keep encouraging one another that we have to live, we have to look after our children.
Because having HIV/AIDS doesn't mean that you are finished. You have a hope to live for a long time. And then also Uganda is very religious. We have a religious belief that everyone passes away at the right time, not by accident. So having HIV/AIDS cannot push you to die. You only have to do it at the right time when your time comes to die. So meanwhile, even if you are affected, have got HIV, you must be useful. You have to have the hope.
We all know that we need to work with people living with HIV/AIDS. But if at the same time you are not open enough to work with these people as equal players, it is more difficult for these people who are infected to come out openly. And if they don't come out, then you lose their genuine and comprehensive participation, which again was a big factor in this country and continues to be an important aspect of our response, because the degree of engagement, the size, the organization, and the respect to the networks of people living with HIV/AIDS in this country is advancing.
Patriarchal and often polygamous, the African family model is not conducive to marital understanding. The woman often finds herself relegated in the family order. The Education for Life program aims to change that reality.
We have had contact with more than 1 million people, very many people, because we deal with the different categories and in different situations. We offer mainly preventive and promotive programs. We teach family life education involving life skills, like encouraging people to have proper hygiene and then to have immunization. And then also we have teaching programs on sexuality and growth and the population issues.
nze siri mukyala naye kyetwayiga mu gurupu yaffe ney'abafumbo ekyokubuulirira abaana baffe. Abaana ffe abasajja oluusi twabalekera nga bakyala kubanga batera okubeera nabo, naye engeri twayiga nga batuyigiriza no ku misomo gyaffe egy'abafumbo egyatugatta, nakiyiga nti kirungi okutuuza abaana ng'omuzadde abazadde mwembi ne mutuuza abaana bammwe ne mbaako kye mbabuulira ekinaabazimba naddala okwewala obulwadde buno obutambula ng'ensi bwetambula kati obwa mukenenya obwa siriimu.
I never used to know sex is a bond between the two of us. I just used to take it as a leisure thing. And at times you could ask for it, but the way I could respond. But after attending the Education for Life, I saw it was something very, very important in life.
The African culture, we believe in having more than one woman or one wife. But it's during that Education for Life seminar that we discovered the dangers of having more than one partner. So that if you're married, then it's important you stick together one-to-one to put down or to reduce the chances of you contracting the HIV/AIDS virus.
One man can have 4 wives, 4 women, and this, if one is sick, it's going to affect all the 4 women. But now if you have got only one, and you are sick, it's going to be confined only to one person. And people will understand later on that it's through the marriage couples that we can have the society free of AIDS.
You know, my own brother died of AIDS, so that's why it is something so close to me. My only brother, and then the wife followed after that, so it makes me so sad. But at the same time, it makes me so happy to see couples getting committed and being able to talk about HIV in their family and what they're going to do. And even the prevalence rate says that people are beginning to open up, and we are working with couples who are now beginning to commit themselves to not spreading the virus to their own couple and to being faithful. It makes me so happy to see so many young people witnessing that they are abstaining and they are doing this because they think it's the right way to live.
In spite of a concerted propaganda campaign in favour of sexual freedom, the Education for Life programme, after more than a dozen years, continues to bear great fruit amongst young people.
I think people are realising that the abstinence and faithfulness and the faith-based, value-based programs are getting results, and therefore people are more prepared to support that type of work now. So I think that is a step forward in the right direction.
Studies show that the prevalence rate has gone down among young people, not so much because of condoms, but because young people are beginning to delay immediate sexual gratification. We are beginning to find that even young people in university are abstaining. We just finished a program training of facilitators where a number of young people were present. And one of the questions they were sharing was their own struggle with abstinence. And I was so impressed that in that room, almost 75% of young people were abstaining.
You abstain so that you avoid AIDS, because AIDS is spreading at a very fast rate. So we have to do our best to try to make sure that we cut down the number of AIDS victims. Abstinence is the best method for avoiding AIDS, because condoms are not so good. They are not 100% secure like abstinence. With abstinence, you're sure there is nothing that is going to bother your life. But with condoms, you can never be sure.
Abstinence is best for my life because it protects me from getting the HIV virus. And of course, it also, when you abstain and you know that you're a virgin, you feel proud of yourself. You know that I kept my purity, and I'll always be that until I find that rightful person that I'm going to spend my life with.
I think as a gynecologist, and seeing the other effects of other sexually transmitted diseases and having to treat them, I would still, even if AIDS wasn't there, I still would promote abstinence for young people. Because we well know that young people are picking up chlamydia, which leads to infertility, and the same way that for gonorrhea, and all these things lead to infertility. And you know, in Africa, if you cannot have a child afterwards, that is a very big difficulty and cross within that relationship.
In Uganda, besides the existing Education for Life and behaviour change programmes, a new programme catering to young adolescents has been developed called Adventure Unlimited. Adventure Unlimited's main goal is to prepare children for a responsible and conscious adulthood. In this way, a generation free of AIDS is growing up.
What we are doing here is to prepare these children for the changes that are to come. For instance, menstruation period. The child goes through menstruation, they go to a male teacher. Some male teachers are not really trusted. The teacher can end up using the child. Instead of them seeing the blood and running around and thinking it is a disease, here we are helping them to go through these changes and not to be scared, to give them a guide on what they can do when this happens, because it's going to happen sooner or later, and to give them confidence.
It's a very good program for younger people, say from the ages of 10 to 12, 13, 14, who really you don't want to get into the Education for Life program. Is more from 14-year-olds up. So that program really helps younger people to respect their bodies, to learn more about themselves and why they should obey parents and adults.
When we were growing up, our parents had the time to talk to us. Now the people have to look for something to eat, to feed the children. They are really so busy, and there is that fear of being embarrassed. You know, I can't talk to my children, I'll be embarrassed. And so the children need help from somebody. There has to be somebody to care for the rights and the good growth of the children.
Uganda became one of the first African countries to record a fall in the number of infections.
Uganda is the only country where people talk so openly about HIV/AIDS and sex. And also in the church, we had what we call love carefully and love faithfully. Every stakeholder was involved. The church, the faith-based organizations, the government, the civil society, the different arms of government.
We must influence the understanding of the population, but that this is not the end, because spread of infection does not stop. The maintenance, the adherence to treatment is not easy. So therefore, more and more advocacy and mobilization of society must continue. The young people who are coming at a time when the epidemic is low need more support for them to be aware of the epidemic, even as the numbers of infected people are reduced. Therefore, we need to keep on the alert and to keep the fight up.
We looked at AIDS as a social, economic, and political problem. We also saw it as a development problem. And so therefore, every ministry had to develop a program for fighting HIV/AIDS. In my ministry, for example, you will find that the youth have a program for fighting HIV/AIDS through the National Council for Youth. The women have a program for fighting HIV/AIDS through the National Council for Women. The workers have a program for fighting HIV/AIDS at the workplace. And we also interact with the children through the schools. Even the people with disability have a program for fighting HIV/AIDS.
Our recent survey has shown that we are now at 6.4%, which is good. But our problem now is with the coming on the market of drugs, ARVs, people possibly being complacent, and that this is a chronic disease you can live with, like high blood pressure and diabetes and so on. So we have to carry on. People might slow down on the campaigns, the interventions, and then we get an upsurge of the problem. Our target is to have 0%.
I would just love that so many people would take up this program and preach it in the housetops, from the housetops. I'm totally convinced that this particular pandemic will not change unless there's behaviour change and unless people turn back to God.
I think if we go down that road, we will find that we can overcome a lot of the root causes for the spread of AIDS. And I think, I do believe, and I have seen so many people being able to change lifestyles for the better, and so many youth making those promises to wait until marriage, that would give me hope that we will win the battle against AIDS.